That was so mean.
And on that note, hello one and all. Welcome back to Via the Arcana, a show about pop culture and tabletop game design. And about the show Via the Arcana in our first season. The whole first season. We're also going to cover episode 1 on that one shot so many years ago of Pride Pines, an Oregon Coast mystery. I'm here with the stars of Pride Pines themselves. Maddie.
Me.
Matt.
The Poo-Tooth guy.
Eli.
Heyo.
And newcomer Colton.
It's good to be back.
First off, thank you to all our players for playing over the course, at this point, years. Yeah, I love playing with you guys. And you guys made this adventure, this mystery, pretty good. When I maybe botched it? Question mark? That'll be the thumbnail as we get into the topics of how the mystery genre is something that I realized I was a lot more frustrated with than I thought, and kind of abandoned a lot of sort of mystery tropes. Maybe against the characters, because you guys... actually, let's talk about actual character creation all the way back in the day when we came up with Holly, Duncan, and the Annihilator. Maddie, do you want to talk about the process of Holly and like inspirations with that?
Yeah, I mean, it was pitched as like a small town mystery solving, and so I was like, okay, Nancy Drew flavored, like main character-esque, you know. So I kind of went very mainstream, and like at that point, I think I had played like a druid and a sorcerer, but I was like, druid's my class, and I wanted to have a turtle. So I was like, okay, Circle of the Wildfire, that works for me. So I didn't put as much effort into it because I was like, I know it's a one shot. But then coming back around this time, I'm like, okay, I'm actually going to like look at this character and give him a little bit more to work with, you know, give him an actual backstory and expand on him and stuff like that.
Yeah, really great to have that sort of backstory expanded upon. Nothing wrong with not really doing a backstory, though, because actually we did get this during an episode. We were coming up with all kinds of different high school characters in an episode in, like, our series. I like to just create characters. Like, that's probably my favorite part of D&D. I probably create a character on my own once a week. So we had an episode creating high school kind of characters in a sort of modern setting, which, like a lot of sort of tabletop games, kind of want that itch. Like, this is a very just sort of popular genre to, like, actually be a character in and play with. Where we came up with a sort of burnt-out high school student serving the unresting warlock. Is there any more process behind creating Duncan Saxby, Eli?
Yeah, although, granted, I don't remember too much. It was a while ago, but as a kid, I loved the Encyclopedia Brown books. So when I think of Kid Sleuths, I think of Donald J. Sobel's precocious little dude.
Right.
And I always I fell in love with the fact that he was a little kid who was just so much smarter than everyone around him, and he liked to flaunt it and like solve these mysteries that the adults couldn't. And for some reason as a kid, I was like, oh, I wish I could be that kid. I wish I could be the little annoying, smart dude who solves all these crimes. And so I definitely wanted to do a character like that. But then also, in a modern sense, I mean, those books are from like the 50s or whatever. Like in a more modern sense, what would a kid genius do? He wouldn't go around solving mysteries. He would learn how to work with technology and stuff. And so that was the inspiration behind him being the constructor of the Annihilator, I think.
Exactly.
Like, what would a Encyclopedia Brown do in the modern day? What would it be like in the modern day?
Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah, I definitely could see all those influences in like that sort of like really interrogated like the confidence of, you know, Duncan, and like, you know, it probably is well earned. He does a lot of crazy RoboCop cybernetic work. And we did have to pivot to a very master in robotics because whatever, like Matt's characters, whatever movie he saw as a headline that week, he's just like, oh, I'm just going to play this. And then he just sort of commits fully in like really interesting way, which I never mind just sort of pop culture characters. And all of his ridiculous characters, I never blink. So yeah, we'll definitely play with it. And sort of like, yeah, I'll get into more into what I had to do to accommodate the Annihilator. But I'd love to hear Matt's process of just like, why a Terminator?
I watched T2.
Hell yeah, brother.
And that movie has the sort of like old robot paired off with like the young kid kind of vibe, and I thought that would fit in well to the setting. And so and especially like mechanically with D&D, you tend to need something that can take some hits and be some muscle. And so I thought that would slide in pretty good between our kid sleuths to have some sort of big fighty guy.
Yeah, exactly right.
And I also like just playing big fighty guys, so that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, you definitely need a more bruiser and like a tougher guy for it. And that was a great sort of starting point for the adventure. It just definitely was a lot easier to come up with, to have both of you, like in this sort of revival of Pride Pines. I was definitely super excited to have characters like, I mean, that's also like a double-edged sword, having characters devoted to a god. You got to make the story about that god, because, a lot of the characters not only revere that and sort of have a relationship with a sort of very powerful figure, kind of in the same way as like a mystery story, a sleuth should be the child of a sheriff or a mayor. That's what the sort of Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated found out, that like, every sort of characters in that shows has a pretty high sort of social status due to their parents' kind of occupation and place in town, in a small town. And I just sort of treated a god in a similar way. That kind of did lose the plot a little bit. That kind of did get messy. But sticking of having like this sort of street tough fighter of the character, I also wanted to introduce an old rival, an old sort of antagonist. Like if you were reading Pride Pines as a sort of book series, like book 3 would be a sort of antagonist that could have challenged the sleuths and like their sort of vision of themselves as like sort of upstanding citizens after going after a sort of I initially pictured this as a tough kid, but Colton brought a lot more sort of nuance to that than I was sort of picturing, that I also appreciated. Colton, do you want to talk about us coming up with red herrings? Because we did come up with this, I want to say a year ago, before we got our sessions back up and running.
When was the original run? Because I think it was like...
I think it was probably the month after the original run, maybe.
Yeah, it was like just after, because I was,
it was
like
such a big hit.
busy for the original run, but you wanted to get me in, so
people were definitely listening to the show.
Yeah. I remember sitting down with you and like planning this character out, but I think it all kind of revolved around the pun that is Reed's name, Red Herrings.
Exactly. Yeah, because my favorite character from, of course, Pup Named Scooby-Doo, Red Herrings.
Yeah.
Just a great sort of bully kind of character against the gang that Fred is always like, it's going to be Red Herrings. And then it never is, except for one episode in season 3 where it actually was Red Herrings. That got to pay off. But yeah. I definitely wanted a more salt of the earth kind of character. What was your thoughts about, committing to a barbarian for Red Herrings?
Oh, I was just going to say, like, it was really interesting kind of exploring I don't know, I've been thinking of it as, like, the consequences of kid sleuths, where it's like, yeah, the crimes they're solving, especially as kids, aren't real crimes.
Yeah. Just petty thefts. Yeah.
Just like, and just kind of like, I thought it would be kind of funny and interesting to explore the other end of that and kind of create some interpersonal conflict to explore within the session. Mm-hmm. As a barbarian, I mean, that was pretty new for me. I have never played a barbarian before, but it was a lot of fun, punching stuff, and I think we might talk about, you were mentioning some balance things around unarmed combat, especially in kind of a modern setting where we're more...
Weapons feel weirder, yeah.
Weapons feel weird, in kind of a modern setting. if someone pulls out a sword and starts going medieval on someone. That's kind of where the cops show up, I guess.
I think that's part of the comedy too. I was going for with the Annihilator, was just like, okay, he pulls out a gun, and that's like such an escalation that it's like, it's just kind of to the point of ridiculousness.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is higher stakes with like actual magical monsters. Like this isn't like a season of Riverdale where there's like, I mean, there's more guns than you would think, but it's like a lot of guns are brandished until one like accidentally fires with like a lot of these sort of teen dramas. But I wanted this to be a real D&D adventure with like a lot of different lore and like, like another magic world, like having answers for all the magic things. That does kind of line up with like a lot of what Forgotten Realms and like traditional D&D lore is. Like it's a very sort of multiplanar multiverse game. Watch out. I'm the only fan of the multiverse anymore. People burn down on that.
Was that shut down yet?
Multiverses is also shut down. Rest in peace. It's been on for a month. Nobody was able to keep anything they unlocked. So it's all modding from here on out. But yeah, we may talk about the multiverse a little bit more for our next sort of adventure. We'll get into that in a moment. As I do want to talk about just everything you guys set on the table. Characters are pretty good. I do feel like I maybe didn't serve your guys' characters as well. Especially, man, this episode 4, the chapter 4 of Pride Pines. That was a brutal edit. I cut out 40 minutes of that episode. I had a lot of sort of tirades and just sort of chattings, and I'm just like, what am I even saying here? Do they need all of this? I don't know. Because, like, I'm going to set up a big sort of, before the finale, instead of just, like, having, like, a big sort of debrief and like just sort of breakdown of everything we've learned so far for like some final reveals. Like, hey, this is all your guys' answers to the mystery. But then the answer to the mystery is that like, oh, it's like a complicated magical world. Okay. It wasn't like, oh, it was actually this person that was the whole time, which, I definitely didn't build as much of a mystery as I did last time. And last time I didn't, in our first adventure, for the one shot, I definitely didn't do that much of a mystery either. It's just like, hey, where are these people? Oh, they're over here. Okay. Which is like how mysteries are, But I definitely...
And for a one shot, you have limited time.
I'm definitely realized I'm not as comfortable with obscuring the information and like kind of putting in sort of obstacles and dead ends. Because we don't have that much time. If we definitely had like more time to like play as a session, just like, like, I appreciate everyone, actually getting able to play and whatnot. And, like, 2 hours just feels good as a session, but it is a very short kind of time to play traditionally for a game like Dungeons & Dragons with, like, a big sort of turn base and a lot of sort of open-endedness in sort of how you find information. Yeah, how did you guys feel about just the kind of somewhat linear nature of the mystery?
I mean, it definitely was like different than like I think the first one was like, oh, clue, answer. But I feel like, at least for Holly's side of the story, like she kind of diverged from this typical teen sleuth because she's like, now I'm not a teen and I'm not really a sleuth anymore. So where do I go from here? And this like dead end feeling of like, I don't want to go to college. I don't want to become a cop. Like, so for her, I think it made sense to have this like, the real world isn't this linear clue solution thing. It's complicated and it's messy. And like the idea, I know this was kind of thrown in later, it's a little bit of a fix it, but the idea of like these powerful beings are kind of both lying to you. So like, who do you trust? Who's right? Who's like, I think that's interesting, especially for a character like Holly and Duncan, who are like, this is the one answer, to have to like open up and be like, oh, actually, this isn't the one answer. Like I have to figure out that nuance. So I actually kind of like that take a little bit more. It's new.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to do something a little bit more new for you guys. I mean, I do like this as a D&D adventure. Combats definitely went pretty well. Went pretty quickly. I did have to, on our last combat, I definitely wanted to do like a big. Honestly, I did want to do like a bigger combat that we've seen normally, with just like a lot of like, hey, there's a main thing that needs to be done, but also there's people in peril. There's like monsters coming out each and every way. with just like a lot more sort of distractions and diversions to keep people alive. But then I realized like after round one, was like, oh, we started a little bit later. It was 40 minutes for round one. I'm just going to make the students just kind of go to sleep and like sort of go that way. Luckily, you guys always subvert. First time I've ever drawn up physical battle plans for Holly catching the mimic that was in the center with all the pixies. And a real projector was invisible somewhere in the distance. And a lot of other people as well. I wanted to make a little bit more of a moment for Eli to come back, even though the Melitodon maybe should have been introduced in like the previous episode. Honestly, episode 4 also, I was completely caught off guard by a very important Nat 20. I remember that. I was definitely just like threw in just everything from my notes, like at the start of an episode, even though I probably would have just left out the freaky fairy guy. So Eli, you actually probably haven't heard the episode quite yet. So yeah, I had you go unconscious and like slowly drift towards the portal, and people would have to like follow you into the portal, right? But I told Matt that he'd have to get a nat 20 to drag you back in, and he did. So you didn't go into the portal, so nobody had a reason to go into the sort of portal of like a dream realm. Because I wanted to do like a bigger flashback episode, because I thought I could do flashbacks, and I can't really do flashbacks. That was a weird part of the episode.
I liked it, honestly.
I definitely found it really hard to be a bully. Like, I wanted to just have, like, you know, your original sort of Fred Jones type for the leader of the Pride Pine Sleuths to be a real big bully to, you know, Reed. And probably a bully to Holly and Duncan as well. Because I was going to set up that he would be involved in the next mystery, like next season, as like a sort of stinger. But honestly, I laid it on like a stinger directly related to you guys, you know, for like a bigger ending. But yeah, I definitely found a hard time, and just like pretty cliched sort of Colton like pivoted in like a really good way to be like a really meek, kind of skinnier, having a tougher time for Reed Herrings than just like the Scooby-Doo villain that I pitched him to be. So yeah, all those scenes were solid. Lacey Barrett was definitely something that I definitely didn't want to be a character, but then I probably didn't want her to be too antagonistic because we were getting a pretty big crew. And I just wanted a character who could like use a weapon and like kind of run through enemies a little bit faster if you guys want to experiment with your strategies a little bit more as like a D&D balance thing. But also, I really loved that Maddie's pitch that she caused a magical accident that caused Lacey Berry to disappear. Because I always wanted you guys to find Lacey mauled by some creature in the woods. To definitely be revealed to be a magical creature before you guys knew magic existed in the world. And just be like a really dark sort of children's adventure, just like, oh, there's no more innocence anymore. We solved the mystery of a missing person, and it ended in, you know, a pretty tragic death of a child, of a mauled child. But I didn't want it to be too dark for like a D&D adventure, so I did make that child into a crystalline zombie. That I thought was going to be like a really scary chase through the woods, and like the episode would have ended like at the chase after you guys talked a little bit. But since Matt first instinct was rightfully to swing on like a enemy monster or whatever, instead of like carrying the kids out of there like in the same back as like Duncan's body was getting carried. But I do think it's okay to just sort of, you know, have that scene resolved, and then the image of the future of Pride Pines that you now realize was probably going to be Jehovah's plan in general to secure that future rather than stop it. Was that sort of thing. I definitely wanted a future vision to give Matt's character something, because he doesn't really have a history as an Oath of the Future Paladin. I have to give him a premonition of the future to kind of have in the back of his mind when he's working. Which I love future visions, you know, but it's definitely weirder in a mystery story. Yeah, how do we feel about the FBI raid? That's the first thing I came up with. I probably also actually have had actual genuine problem with this, is that I came up with everything, wrote it down like 6 months ago when I thought we could possibly play. But then we just ended up doing some video game nights and movie shows. So yeah, we still have plenty of time to hang out, but yeah, actually committing to D&D stories is definitely something I'll look forward to this summer.
Yeah, I mean...
Yeah, how'd you guys feel about the FBI being like an explosive opening?
Totally caught me off guard. Like, I think that I was like, oh, it'll be a magical being or something else. And I'm like, the FBI? What? And so for like an opening, it was a very strong one. Like if you want to talk about like hooking in your audience, I was like, what? Okay. And I think that them being kind of the like fumbling idiots also I think works. I like that a lot.
Because I did want to show you guys being, strong D&D characters. Because I do think it's funny to just have like flashbangs not work on you guys, but sort of flashbang themselves each time. But yeah, I love sleuths just having a better time than like the sort of establishment, I should say. Because I definitely wrote these notes with just like a little bit of research on the FBI. Seems like, this seems like a pretty fratty place to me. I don't know.
It was very fun.
Any other moments I'm missing from the journey that we'd like to talk about? I know I threw a lot at you guys background wise and sort of information wise. But what about character moments? Do you think your guys' relationships have changed with the other characters by the end of it? Because I may have not facilitated that as much as getting you to new locations and a couple of NPCs.
I mean, I definitely think so. The Annihilator was very Eli-centric in the first run of the series, and then was forced with Eli being off at college and working for the feds to kind of
shockingly accurate to real life, actually.
That is just told directly
pretty much
from real
a pig
life
now. Yeah.
Now instead of hanging out with Eli, I have to hang out with my stupid wife.
Yeah. Honestly, that was actually a huge highlight, is that Holly didn't like the Annihilator at all. Which he was kind of pretty annoying and a nuisance during your investigations, like busting through doors and stuff.
The opposite of Holly.
Yeah. Because like Holly wasn't as interested in like probably slaying a monster as was, finding missing people and whatnot.
I really liked the Holly Annihilator dynamic.
Oh yeah, it was so good.
Which we happen to play a lot of characters where you are not particularly thrilled about.
Right? Like Greg and Tiffany.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. I think it's just
funny.
Real life.
I was gonna say it's just real life manifesting and can't handle him.
Real life. The old ball and
But
chain.
then I'm like, all right, he's kind of endearing. I guess I should marry him.
Yeah, Matt really is a ball at the end of a chain kind of guy, if I dare say so.
Yeah, I'm the one who's chained.
Exactly.
I am the old
100%.
ball and chain.
No, and I think that kind of like helped Holly's character develop more too. Was it's like she's being pulled out of her old mindset and having to be like, okay.
She's like not happy with her circumstances, but she also doesn't want it to change unless she just like gets famous doing what she is doing right now. Which is why I had the world go global on sort of magic and whatnot. Because also, it kind of does seem a little bit boring to me. It's just like, it's the normal world and magic is a secret, It just seems kind of lazy to me. I like to put in the work of just like, how does magic actually integrate with people's knowledge of the world and like how people function. So yeah, I also love the moments when magic is revealed, whatnot. Like the epic beginning of Ultimate Alien Ben 10, when he's revealed to be an alien transforming superhero to the world. And he's like, whoa, this is going to change everything. And there's only like 4 episodes about it. But he's like, yeah, I'm going to keep doing superhero alien stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes for this story.
How does Reed feel about the Pride Pine Sloughs, Colton? I'm wondering how Reed is feeling at the end of this adventure after, finding his mother.
Yeah, I mean, I think... his journey with the sleuth has kind of been a roller coaster. Kind of revealed in the flashback, he was like very, like he admired the sleuths and like wanted to be kind of a part of that, and just kind of like, just kind of bullied around that. But after he was crossed by the sleuths, he was anti-sleuth. And not very trusting. But I think he's kind of come around, not necessarily even to the concept of the sleuths, but the people who are the sleuths. The Annihilator, Holly, and I don't even know if my character ever met Eli. I
I will say that's actually a bit of a botch, is like not giving the chance for characters to have an out to like find their way back into a group or an adventure. Not really giving you guys like, I probably should have opened, honestly, episode 4 was probably going to be before Eli couldn't make it. I definitely wanted just like a way more talky episode. Which I not to blame Eli, because I also wanted to to sort of end the episode on. I wanted to end the episode without like a big exposition dump, like before knowing what the final battle is going to be. But then I'm just like, oh, I just panicked. I just straight up panicked. Like I was so like it was a DM must was growing in the room when I had to do the flashbacks. I'm like, oh my god, I don't think I can do flashbacks in this way.
Well, that episode, I think like everyone got one, right?
Yeah, everyone got a flashback. Which didn't really have people
pretty dang impressive for like coming up with all of that in one go.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like the sort of individual stuff, but like the good thing about this individual stuff is like the characters kind of reconvene and like kind of have a new understanding of each other. But I kept pushing you guys.
No, I think that it was good too because we never got to see like these backstories, and so we jumped into the story kind of after the peak of the sleuths, and so to get a look back at what happened and to get a bigger picture I think was helpful. And I think even if our characters didn't interact personally in that episode, I think that the kind of understanding of what was going on like in each of their individual journeys kind of changed the way they look at themselves in the present when they come back from this flashback. So even though we didn't get that like heart-to-heart moment with other characters, I do think we still had that development.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I mean, yeah, you can definitely tell that the characters treated each other differently, even though there's no direct interaction. Yeah, and I definitely appreciate all you guys kind of are growing with your characters a lot. You know, it's definitely, I mean, the game is a lot more fun when you're, you know, growing in power as well as, yeah, because it was a crazy idea to level up like during an adventure. During a short adventure, because I'm a madman. And I wanted Matt to use his sort of hindsight rolls, which he never did so I don't know how strong it is. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. Because this is like a homebrewed campaign with like a lot of character classes that are probably strong. Also, I think subclasses should be the strongest part of a character sheet. That's going to be a hot take for this podcast. Balance is going to be in favor of the players. For what I'm designing for these sort of superhero inspired or comic book inspired. There's a couple of non-superhero comic book characters. I'm working on an Edna Mode Artificer at the moment. I feel like that's going to be the last one. Superhero Taylor is going to be the last Artificer I put in print. And yeah,
I mean, but if you're not gearing your campaign to what your characters are, then it's like you're just kind of squandering your players. Like,
yeah,
I think that that's an important part of D&D is honoring the fact that it's like, hey, this character is all about water. I'm going to put them near the water so they have a chance to use it. Like, that's, you know, very important.
But yeah, you guys liked your classes, I hope.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, I had no issue with that.
Especially when you got competing gods to try to get you to work. You know,
that was really interesting. I really had no idea what to go. I know I had to make the decision at the end of the combat of like what to do and everything. I had no
Eli was
idea
genuinely confused
how to make this decision.
True, perplexed. Got him. What I want to do is just like you got to have competition in like these sort of mystery stories, and that I actually do like. You know, competing parties, which is like, hey, I want this mystery solved in our way. Yeah, and the truth was revealed to the world because I just want the Pride Pine Sleuths to have nowhere else to hide. That's the thing, right? I want them to have some higher stakes so that way you guys want to avoid conflict a little bit more and like bring it back to like sort of stealthy mysteries. Because like a lot of mysteries, you're just sneaking around someplace while it's closed to look for clues. And I feel like I did sort of leave that behind in a sort of mistaken way. I definitely sort of neglected that until the last episode. I also neglected a lot of... I think the combat was fun. Like, hopefully the movie Monsters wasn't too big of a departure from, you know, what you guys would expect from, like, the Feywild. But I definitely wanted something more earthy and more human for magic to go up against in a sort of mystery rather than just having, like, more Fey... Because Feywild creatures get pretty nuts. Like, there are things just like, oh, this is a snake but big. There's, like, Feywilds have, like, basilisks that, you know, stakes that turn you to stone and stuff like that. But also, like, Feywild just has a lot of things with, like, mixes of animals and, like, feathered kind of fairy creatures and all kinds of stuff. So I kind of wanted to bring it back to just a sort of more Earth iconography for vampires and, like, sharks from movies. I was going to do a swarm of piranhas because the piranha horror movies are probably bigger than Jaws at this point. Well, not bigger than Jaws, but, you know, are, like, more sort of piranhas have a lot more, like, cheesy horror movies than sharks do. But yeah, I don't know. Were there movie monsters a good pull? Would you guys want to do more stuff like that in the future of just like, oh, these are like more sort of iconography? These are like sort of iconic movie monsters that you guys want to go up against, or would you guys want to go for more strange D&D type of monsters in the future?
I mean, I think for this campaign it worked because we were having like the projector and then we went to the movie screen. So I think that thematically for this session it tied in. But I think that like if magic is expanding into the greater world, I think there's a higher chance that we're going to run into just weird things out there, like wherever we end up being taken, or conversely where things come to us if we're kind of outed as these magical kind of wielders. I think that could be interesting to figure out, like, oh my gosh, there's this crazy creature that's attacking us now. I have no idea what this is.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Things are definitely in flux and changing. So the episode did end pretty suddenly, I should say, because we were going pretty late. But I would say as a tease for next season that we'll do, honestly, like, we're not going to set anything in stone. We have a lot of just sort of different worlds and characters to kind of go through and play. Maybe shorter, like maybe like 2 or 3 episodes from here on out when we do kind of do play sessions. I also got to do a bunch of solo episodes to break down inspirations behind designs, you know, comic book kind of origins and how I put them into D&D. I also want to do, honestly, I kind of want to make Pride Pines a summer only thing.
It feels like a summer vibe.
Check back in with the sleuths, as a lot of things have changed. A lot of things that I do have concrete and stone, like I do have the notes written and all that, which, you know, maybe isn't as conducive to a proper sort of mystery story. It's just having everything kind of set up before your players kind of define a lot of it. But yeah, I have the Dream Realm as a sort of place you guys interact with more because the Feywild has been somewhat destroyed. I haven't put anything that, but yeah, this sort of, oh, I totally forgot. I mean, do you guys want some teases about, you know, the world of the Pride Pines that you guys will probably forget by the time we start next summer?
As long as it's not a heavy spoiler.
Yeah. A lot of stuff, yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of hints towards Holly's mother involved a lot of the time. So yeah, that's definitely, she was going to be the original ending of the episode before we went a little bit long. And I just decided to end on like a more cliffhanger note rather than having just like a confrontation with Holly and her mother. But yeah, she'll be a big character moving forward. Lacey Barrett has some feelings about Jehovah misleading her a little bit because, like, you know, in the same way that you guys are still kind of worrying about your adulthood and like how you fit in institutions, like Lacey Barrett was comfortable in this sort of dream life, sort of dream worlds institutions of just like, oh, I'm just going to defend sort of creatures that are trying to get to the real world. Because a lot of Feywild creatures are fleeing after an environmental disaster, as it would have been revealed that the first unresting warlock was actually a gnome artificer from the Feywild all that time ago. So yeah, that's what the only other sort of connection to Jehovah, the unresting. Jehovah, decent name. I do like that. I like the Melatonodon better, if I'm honest, to be like a more sort of, because Melatonodon is like not a traditional god. He's more like in D&D. There's different planes of existence, but there's also the elemental chaos, which is just like roiling kind of elements like earth, fire, and water, just sort of getting expunged out into other planes. That's like where a lot of elemental magic comes from, and like elemental gods and beings are like, they're gods that don't have any sort of devotion to it, but they are just conduits to these sort of powers and elements too. The material plane is what we call the real world. I like the material plane as a name. It just hits just right. But yeah, definitely Jehovah kind of burned through resources in the Feywild and used his unresting warlocks to kind of wreck the Feywild for his own ambitions. So yeah, I didn't put any hints in that or clues because trying to keep us on track. But yeah, those are the main desires and whatnot. Yeah, before we move on to what's next for the podcast, one last call for how the whole season went and how your characters are and how you feel about your characters going forward. Is the Annihilator going to be dead for real, Matt? Do you want Annihilator to be fully dead, or should we make a story about getting him back in some way?
Okay. I'm down either way. I can re-roll a character. We can have the Annihilator rise up like a vampire out of a coffin.
Hell yeah.
And keep on annihilating.
I will rebuild you.
Yeah. Yeah,
as long as if he does die, there's like the Lego like brick falling apart sound.
I probably could have thrown that in. I did not. I did like coffee brewing slowing down, but
oh, that's pretty good too.
Yeah.
And
I probably should have put in the Lego sound effect there. Actually, I think I did put the Tom. I always put the Tom and Jerry scream in throughout the episodes, especially when he went into the ghost movie. But oh yeah, I didn't talk about that at all. Honestly, looking back on it now, I probably should have made the whole fight in the projector screen, just bouncing around different movies. Because I had a couple of movies in mind to do that, but then time wise, we only had like one round of combat. So yeah, that'll definitely be the movie. The movie fight will definitely come back in a similar way.
Very cool. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm happy with Holly's character development. I feel like she went in a direction I wasn't like entirely expecting, which I appreciated. So it's kind of fun to have like some input on my end, but also like have the story kind of force you as a player to react to it because it feels more authentic to like your character growing versus just saying I'm going to be here and then I'm going to be here. So I liked it.
Yeah, no, that definitely makes character growth a lot more like the payoff better if you're not just like, okay, I'm at point A and I've got a point B I'm going to. I really like just having a point A and then just wherever I end up in the campaign is where I end up.
Yeah, glad you guys feel the same way. Yeah. Did I punk you too hard, Colton? I feel like I threw a lot at you during this game. Can you handle the heat? No, I'm kidding. Yeah, do you feel like...
I mean, yeah, you did throw a lot at me, but I thought that was a very fun challenge. Just kind
as like
of
the new kid, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Kind of piecing together, finding my place in the puzzle that is Pride Pines.
Indeed.
I think moving forward, I think there's a lot of opportunities for those like growth conversations and building that trust. And like, I think at this point in Reed's life, he's not a bad guy. The way I was kind of envisioning him was kind of more reclusive because he feels he like isn't, liked by Pride Pines, like the town as a whole. And so he kind of keeps to himself. And so I think next season could see him kind of exploring that kind of buildup of trust among the sleuths and kind of reintegrating into society, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it. Yeah, just a much more interesting character arc. And like classic sort of mystery, archetypes of just like the recluse, somebody who is wronged, not exactly, finding the motivation or sort of knowledge to kind of right the wrongs that's done to yourself, And that's like the great thing about mystery stories. It's like, it's all about, justice and righting, what it was. Yeah. And on that note, I think we made a good season, a season of tabletop storytelling that I'm definitely, mostly proud of. Episode 4 was still solid. The edits turned out pretty solid too. Not to pat myself on the back, you know.
Do some padding.
I mean, finally got into that Epidemic music. Or Epidemic Sound subscription, excuse me. Music was a lot more cohesive this season. And to reveal the next few weeks of the VME Arcana feed, I'm gonna redo the edit on our first episode and make an entire supercut of Pride Pine Season 1, which is probably going to be like a 7-hour podcast episode. If you just want to have it all together in one session, I'm going to try to make it look a little bit nicer for YouTube. Maybe get some traction that way, so feel free to share that around when that comes out in the next week. I'll do a couple of solo episodes, and then we will do a character creation episode where we will reveal our next setting for our band of adventurers here. So yeah, in the next few weeks, the show's gonna be changing a little bit again. This is gonna be a multifaceted show, not gonna be an actual play show every week. Sadly. I know, but yeah, this is a little bit more of an experimental tabletop show than you've ever heard before.
Groundbreaking.
So yeah,
We're doing little experiments.
Yeah, exactly. Very experimental kind of tabletop design as we go behind all these sort of wonderful subclasses. The Circle of the Seven Tides. Now, Maddie played Oath of the Future Paladin. The Matt played The Path of the Wicked that Colton expertly played. And then there'll be a couple of Warlock classes that Eli hasn't tried out yet. But they're cool. I got a Symbiote subclass and Silver Surfer Galactus kind of Warlock subclass, which is pretty sick. As we'd say at the end of every episode of VME Arcana,
we're doing experiments up in the bitch.
yes.
Eloquent.
Yes. Upholding this great experiment, the D&D podcast. Tabletop games are cool, and keep in touch, everyone. Bye.
Wee wee.
See ya.
Bye.